It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. And that's what you have here. That's what you've earned here tonight.
Forget about the crowds, the size of the school, their fancy uniforms, and remember what got you here. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential, to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners.
On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch because we know when we add up all those inches, that's gonna make the difference between winning and losing.
It's down to the wire with Errol Marks and Speedy Petey.
Oh, Petey!
On the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
All right. And good evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Down to the Wire show on this Tuesday, January 7th, 2020. Yes, hard to believe. Big shoes to fill tonight, as there will be no Errol tonight, but have no fear, because we still got Speedy. We also have Kevin and myself here. It's Kevin, right? Yes. Kevin and myself here. We're going to take your calls. We're going to chat sports with you. The number to join is 631-300-4477. Lots to talk about today, and why don't we start with some of the news that came down today. As you can see, I am wearing my Steve Smith Carolina Panthers jersey in honor of the new hirings that took place today.
Are you a Panthers fan, or just?
I am not.
You just like Steve Smith.
So
I don't blame you. He was a great player.
I'm a wide receiver at heart.
Okay.
When I played football, I was a wide receiver, and my favorite wide receiver was Jerry Rice.
Of course.
But I also was a big fan of Steve Smith. I actually, my first year of playing fantasy football, I was new to it, and I didn't really know. I drafted Steve Smith with the first overall pick. And that was, I forget exactly what year it was, but it was a year when LaDainian Tomlinson had an amazing year.
Oh, but his MVP season was 06.
Yes,
so.
I think so. That was the year,
Okay.
and I was mocked for taking Steve's. Although actually Steve Smith was one of the best wide receivers that year. Had a very good season, but I was mocked for that. I named myself Team Steve Smith after that. But I am not a Panthers fan. I am unfortunately a Jets fan. Actually, all the teams that I root for have not won a championship since I've been alive. So, yeah, that's been fun. But, yeah, so about those hirings. So, I from what I was hearing, I thought that Matt Rule was in, there was talks that he was supposed to end up being the Giants head coach. And then we hear this morning that he ends up going to the Panthers. So kind of a bit of a shock there.
Well, I think the Panthers are actually a better fit for Matt Rule anyway, just because it's a really young offense all at once, and it's a very similar to what a college type
Giants
offense is.
are a pretty young offense too.
I understand that. I'm talking about more what is closer to a college type offense. Look at the Panthers. You got Christian McCaffrey, great running back. You got two very scat back.
So good.
Right. You have two very scat back types, smaller speed slot wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Not Deebo Samuel. DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. You got, again, other smaller receivers after that. You got young quarterbacks. Will Grier, who I liked as a prospect. I hope he stays, but I don't know if Rule, if that's the guy he wants. You got Kyle Allen if he stays. You got a lot of different types, and this team is going to stay young. You got a young, for the most part, with the exception of Trey Turner, offensive line. So you have a very college-type team with the Carolina Panthers. The Giants are like that, too. They have it to an extent, but I think in terms of the types of players Carolina has, they needed a younger coach. Whether it was a younger coordinator, which was adopting to the modern NFL, or a young college coach. They needed that kind of coach. Like I think if Mike McCarthy went to the Panthers, I don't think it would fit at all.
Yeah.
I think they needed that kind of coach. So I think Matt Rule, even though I'm not crazy about Big 12 coaches going into the NFL, the way he built up that program and that kind of team, I still think it could work there more than other spots for him.
It's kind of ironic, though. You're saying they needed a young head coach,
Carolina,
or that. But so Ron Rivera was fired by the Panthers, and he went to the Washington Redskins, and he said he really wanted a young foundation to coach. So it's kind of weird that like he left a young team,
right,
to go coach another young
fair.
team.
I understand that. And I'm not saying Ron Rivera's a bad coach. He's a good coach. But I think the Panthers, kind of since that McCaffrey draft, were kind of shifting in a different direction. Ron Rivera's identity was always he's a defensive coach.
How long was he there?
Since 2011. So he was there for 8 years. But his identity was very power-based. They had power, big quarterback in Cam Newton, always power runners with Jonathan Stewart. They brought in Mike Tolbert. They had bigger type receivers. And again, a defense that had some speed at the linebacker position, had some speed with their pass rushers, but was still more of a power type team. They stopped the run, bigger corners, stuff like that. That was his identity. But the league started to shift kind of in that 2017 season to more of that scat back,
McCaffrey,
speed type, speed with the linebackers, speed with corners, stuff like that. Speed with receivers, stuff like that. So it just kind of shifted away from what he liked to do. So I think the Panthers have always been waiting for that new fit. I think they would have fired him in 2017 if they didn't make the playoffs, but they made the playoffs.
It just seems like
so they weren't going to fire him after that.
I hear you, and it does. To your point, it does seem like there's only one Bill Belichick. There's only one situation like that where a head coach, a program for the most part has stayed intact for so long, and it seems some of the other coaches seem to only last, I don't know, maybe successful ones like a 7 to 10 season radius, and then they just eventually want a different voice. Like Marvin Lewis coached for a while,
right?
Ron Rivera, Mike McCarthy, Jason Garrett. Eventually, you want a change of voice. You know, it even applies to baseball. Joe Girardi coached the Yankees for 10 seasons. You just, every once in a while, you need a change of the message gets stale, if you want to say. So I understand why they moved on. I don't know. I just found it funny that he wanted to coach a young team, yet there he was. You know, he was coaching a young team.
Right. It was
the Panthers.
Just a different.
They just needed
it was a different type of team than what was, I guess, trending with those draft picks. I don't think.
Right.
I don't think the not conventional, but I don't think the Ron Rivera Panthers would have had those kinds of draft picks in there because of the way that he was able to win and he was able to build that other style of team. And with the way the league was shifting, I think the Panthers just did it in a different direction, and that's the way they ended up going. And again, if he didn't make the playoffs in that 2017 season, which was kind of a surprise with the way they were shifting the team, I think he would have been fired then. But because of that, he was fired again 2 years later. The team was collapsing more in the second half of the season. I think that also contributed with that. So it's not that Ron Rivera wants a veteran team. I don't think he wants to rebuild a team like Bruce Arians did with the Cardinals, where he was bringing in older guys and mixing it with the younger guys. I think he does want a young foundation, but I think the way his style of play is, he's going to have to readjust it. While the Panthers GM and their coaching staff were already kind of preparing for this new speed, motion, offense trend that was happening in the NFL, which, again, Ron Rivera, I don't think struggled with it, but I don't think he's the kind of coach that can get that kind of offense to the best ability. Matt Rule, we'll see what he is, but the way he coached at Baylor and the way college offenses are, he has, I guess, a better chance of being that guy.
Do you think this was the best fit for Matt Rule?
Yeah, I do. I think among what was left, yeah. I think Matt Rule needed.
Do you think this was a better fit over the Giants?
Yes. One, they're a better team than the Giants. They're a much better team than the Giants are right now. And again, I think it's all young offensive players all at once and all college types. It's not, you don't have this one uber skilled receiver and then it's a drop off after there. You have the bigger bodied older receivers and you're dealing with a young quarterback, or vice versa. You're dealing with all young, all at once with this Carolina Panthers team, and just very college-type players right now. Not that the Giants aren't like that, but I think the way the Panthers are right now, they're more built for that perfect college-style offense, kind of like what the Niners are running. To some extent, the Chiefs with their speed receivers. It's closer to that right now than what the Giants are. The Giants are still a run-first team. They still have some bigger body receivers. Obviously, Evan Engram at tight end. So they're trying to shift their identity in a different way. I think the Panthers were the perfect fit for that kind of coach. If anyone were to gamble, and again, I still have my doubts because, again, Big 12 is no defense, so it's easy for an offense to succeed. But the way Matt Rule built up that Baylor program, 2-win season in 2016 or whatever it was, to under 500, no bowl game, and now was one of the top 10 teams left in the nation.
Right.
So he really built up that program very well, where from that aspect, I could trust him a little more as a actual head coach in terms of grooming these players and getting them to work with him.
Although he's never really had, he doesn't have the experience coaching in the NFL outside of that one season that he was some sort of assistant, offensive line assistant with the Giants. But we'll see. We'll see how he handles the NFL. It's not everyone can do it, but he's certainly paid well enough to be considered as somebody who's capable of doing it. So the other news that broke today was the New York Giants, who we thought were in line to land Matt Rule, out of the blue seemingly go and hire Joe Judge from the New England Patriots. And that was that kind of came out of left field, and I didn't really hear this guy's name mentioned much. As the day has gone on, I've been listening to some of the stations and some of the reports coming out about who this guy is, and it's an unknown. But yeah, it really came out of left field with this one, and I don't know. I don't know what to think of this because what do we really know about this guy? He's a young guy. We don't really have much to draw upon.
It's a big unknown with him, just because he was very much down in the coaching ranks, I guess. I'm not saying that because he's a special teams coach. I'm saying that because was an unknown coaching candidate built up for what the trend was in the league. Now, again, I don't like it. I don't dislike it because he's a special teams coach, because I think that's kind of unfair to say, just because all of a sudden
there's been successful special teams coaches,
right? And I also think there are good special teams coaches in the league. The Rams special teams coach has been very good for a while, and he was actually up for their head coaching position for a while too. He was in the running along with a couple other teams. Obviously, they hired Sean McVay, but the Chiefs' head special teams coach has been in the runnings for a while. So it's not that it's a special teams notion that's a bad thing. I hate the lazy notion. I have a young quarterback. You have to get an offensive coach. No, you don't.
Yeah.
The reason I don't like it is for the reasons of you're so low on a coaching tree in Bill Belichick that hasn't worked. Bill Belichick has not had good coaches work in other places. The Patriot way is the Patriot way. It's not really duplicatable in a lot of other places, and that's why other coaches under Belichick have had trouble. Mike Vrabel played for Belichick, but he didn't really coach with under Belichick, and he's working in Tennessee, but that's really it right now. Josh McDaniels had the 1 year, okay, but that's it. There's other coaches just haven't worked. The Patriot way does not travel.
You see, I don't know that it's necessarily that it has to do with the fact that they worked under Bill Belichick and it doesn't seem to apply elsewhere. I think it goes on an individual basis because, we do have Bill O'Brien, who's
fine, but he's just an average coach at best.
Right, he's not great, but
I don't think he's really grown.
Well, he's heading into the he won a playoff game this year, so we'll see what happens.
That was good. I give
him
credit for that. We'll see.
Made good adjustments in the second half.
Right, we'll see how he builds
game.
off that, but I'm just talking about his whole career. It seems like it's been kind of stagnant.
And we've also had Brian Flores, who
did nice his first year.
Yes,
but let's give him more than 1 year.
They shipped off all the talent that they did.
No, Flores did a good job.
In the second half of the season.
I'm not saying he's a bad coach.
Right.
For this year, he did a very good job. We'll see after 1 year. Though.
It's a case-by-case basis. And, the things that I've been hearing about this guy, again, it's an unknown, so it's we'll have to wait and see. But he seems to be very highly regarded by the places that he's been in. He's worked for Nick Saban. He's obviously was with the Patriots for, I forget how long, since like 2012 maybe?
I think so, yeah.
So, and being a special teams coach, like you kind of have to work with both offense and defense. You really, and I've heard that this guy is like very detail oriented. He's a motivator. So I don't know. I don't know if you can use past examples to apply to this guy. And the league is getting, there's a lot more younger coaches coming in, and the Giants really just need some kind of leadership. They need somebody who really can motivate these younger players and really demand accountability with the young players, because I mean, what the Giants have been for the last few seasons has just been embarrassing, and they really need, maybe they do need some of that Patriots mojo to restore some order in their organization.
Okay, that's fair to some extent, because Ben McAdoo was definitely like that, where he was just letting the players do whatever they wanted, and obviously he was terrible. But I don't think that was really Pat Shurmur's issue. I think Pat Shurmur's issue was more the way he used the players and the way he game planned. I think that was more his issue.
He was doomed from the start, I think.
Well, I think the first year I give him a little leeway just because they had a really hard schedule that year. And they were playing close against the NFC South. They were playing close against a good AFC South. So yeah. I think
the season could have gone any way. I think the worst part about it was the fact that I feel like they forced them to try to use Eli Manning again when they probably didn't think that they should have.
I think the way the Giants were operating at that time, they were trying to, again, try to do a hybrid of rebuilding the positions they knew they needed to rebuild. Because remember, what was the narrative at that time? Eli Manning needs help with the offensive line. The Giants had no run game. The Giants had some holes on defense. What did they do? They drafted Saquon Barkley. They drafted Will Hernandez. They signed Nate Solder. Yep. So they were building for those kinds of things. Because the Giants weren't a bad roster before that. They were kind of average. They were middling for a while. They had some defensive players that worked, and again, defensive players that went great the first year and was down the next. So the narrative at that time to what it is now was completely different. Now, obviously, they purged everything for whatever reason. You don't rebuild by trading young players. Thank you, Dave Gettleman. And now all of a sudden the narrative looks different for what the Giants were in the following season. But again, their schedule this year was really easy, where they should have been able to at least be more competitive.
They should have won more games.
They seemed very uncompetitive. We knew the defense was going to be bad, but they were out of position all the time. And offensively, their line was supposed to be better. It didn't show any progress. The Saquon Barkley obviously being hurt hurt a lot of things, but it just didn't seem like they were prepared at all. And Daniel Jones had a good game, had a couple bad games,
so that's another
had
thing.
a good game again. So what is he? He's skill-wise looks better than what I thought he would be, which is good. But what is he?
Jones?
Yeah. What is he in terms of growing as a quarterback? And to me, Shurmur didn't really help that kind of thing at all.
And once they decided to make the move from Eli to Daniel Jones, you kind of had the sense that, okay, so this is what the season's going to be about now. It's no longer about wins and losses.
But it was never like that anyway, I don't think. I think the 2018 season was kind of like
that. Well,
the
owner came out and said, like, the ideal scenario would be we stick with Eli because we're winning games.
Well, you would hope, but again, that wasn't going to happen with all the way that they were getting rid of everybody. If they kept Landon Collins, they kept Odell, they kept trying to improve the holes they had, okay.
It's strange that they parted with all the people that they did. I mean, when you think about...
If you're trading older players, okay, I understand that. Trading Snacks... Yeah, he's an older player. That didn't make sense to me for the price
I didn't
they
get
got.
That one.
But again, I get the reason they want to trade an older player.
But I don't think he was a problem for the locker room or anything like that. I was shocked about that.
I'm not even saying that. I'm saying just rebuilding in general. If you want to trade older players, okay. You don't trade 26-year-old top 5 receiver in the league and 26, 27-year-old top 10 safety in the league. You just don't do that to rebuild.
The Landon Collins thing baffled me. I think it baffled everybody. But Odell, as I mentioned yesterday, there's something about. I think they had to ship him out just for the sake of resetting the culture, because they kind of empowered him to become this. I don't know.
Right, but here's the thing with that though.
They never disciplined him early on, and they just kind of enabled him to become this.
That's McAdoo though. That's not
right.
That's not what it is now. So the play would have been, all right, get rid of McAdoo first. Let's hope another coach can help mature Odell. That was the narrative first.
I mean, they had Tom Coughlin.
Coughlin,
that should have been it.
Tom Coughlin should have never been fired or resigned or whatever happened with him, and I blame the front office for that too.
That's what started the whole.
No, the Giants have been dysfunctional since. Yeah. I know that. That whole 16.
Although they had that one random season.
Right, the one random season where the defense
with McAdoo,
played well.
yeah,
right. Where the defense played well and the offense again played, I guess, well enough, but they still weren't that good. Now
Odell was great that year.
Odell was great, but that was really it.
Mm-hmm.
So, in essence, what you're looking at is from one extreme to the other. Let's test out one theory. Get rid of the coach. Let's see how this other coach changes things. Odell wasn't really that noisy in 2018 in terms of until really the end of the season. I think the November thing where
well, he was quiet until he got paid.
Right. He had but even to get paid, he was showing up. He was practicing. He wasn't saying anything outrageous. It was the only thing I really remember that he said was, again, that Lil Wayne thing. That was later in the season. And that was really the only thing. But that point,
that's not a little thing.
Okay, but at that point, yeah, you could take shots at Eli Manning, and that does look bad. Okay, but I think it's also kind of inevitable anyway. Is my point. I think anyone else could have said it, and it would have been kind of the same message.
What's inevitable?
I think they kind of knew that Eli Manning was regressing slightly. Now, again, I don't blame him at all. Not at all, but I don't blame him entirely.
Right.
It was more the run game, offensive line, terrible coaching.
Yeah.
But you're dealing with that being the only issue. I think you have a chance to hang on to him, and maybe they did something right, and then they all of a sudden trade him. So from that standpoint, I don't understand. Now, going back to what you were saying about the discipline, I don't know if was really the issue with Shurmur, though, because I don't think the Giants were undisciplined. I think the Giants were just young and just bad all this year, all at once. And Pat Shurmur didn't do a good enough job growing that offense without Odell and, again, with Daniel Jones in there now. Daniel Jones was his guy. That's who he wanted, and all he did was fluctuate with him and really did a bad job game planning on an easy schedule. That was really the main issues with him.
Yeah. And
so I understand why he got fired, but I think it was kind of strange that they brought in that kind of coach for this kind of team. Not that it's a special teams coach. That it's a special teams coach. I have no problem with that. It's a Bill Belichick coaching tree for younger players. It's not going to guarantee anything because a lot of younger players can get rattled by that. Yeah, you do want discipline to some extent, but there's good coaches that aren't sticklers that have disciplined football teams. So you don't have to come from a Belichick coaching tree to have a disciplined football team. I don't think that really is the only way to do it.
I don't think it has anything.
I would focus more on, again, developing a strategy, developing good game planning so these guys can grow.
So it all depends on we don't know anything about who he's bringing with him on the staff, right? Because that's to me that's the biggest issue.
That's fine. I'm not gonna fault him if they bring in a good offensive coordinator, if they bring in a good defensive coordinator.
They need somebody to take control of the organization and be like a CEO kind of position, because the last two coaches.
I don't know if I like that either, though. I don't want one guy having all the power.
No, I don't necessarily mean all the power.
Not for this kind of team.
I mean, they need somebody to really take charge of the team, as opposed to the last two coaches, Pat Shurmur and Ben McAdoo, who didn't really seem to have much respect from the players. And I mean, look what happened. I mean, they how many games have they won in the last 3-4 seasons? I mean, they've been one of the worst teams.
I know.
And they need somebody to come in and demand accountability from everybody. Somebody who knows what a winning culture is like and who knows how to be a leader of men. So
I would believe that if I could trust the Belichick coaching tree, but it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, like we said, I don't know that that's the case for every single coach that has been from the Belichick tree. I think we have to wait and see, because we still have Bill O'Brien coaching right now, and we seem to think that Brian Flores did a pretty decent job
for now,
with Miami.
Yes. I think he did a nice job his first year.
I don't think you could just say 100% across the board that, and I understand the argument, because the numbers are there. The coaches have not done well that have come from Belichick. But I don't know. This guy, he's a young guy. It's an unknown commodity, so you kind of have to wait and see. And we don't know who else he's bringing along with him yet. Maybe he brings some experienced coordinators along with him.
I hope so.
We don't know.
Maybe that kind of thing does help. But here's the other thing you got to factor in too. When the Texans and the Dolphins were picking their coaches, now the Texans and Dolphins were in two different positions. The Texans were a good team that had a quarterback that was hindered by injuries, and there's a lot of injuries all at once that year. And then Matt Schaub was just terrible that final season. That's why they moved on from him. They had the first overall pick. They were a 3-13 team. Yes. So Kevin's telling me the Giants are looking at Jason Garrett. Yikes. As an offensive coordinator.
Are they really? Because I thought I heard something about that today, and what they were saying was that they initially wanted to request an interview with him as the head coach, not as the offensive coordinator.
Okay, no, that wasn't the case. I think it was offensive coordinator too. But going back to what I was saying earlier, the Texans were a 2-14 team, I think, that season, but they weren't a 2-14 team on paper. They were a better team than that. So they had previous playoff runs where they were losing to the Patriots. So they were thinking, all right, maybe you get a guy that can help understand what the Patriots like to do, because the Patriots were a juggernaut. They were beating Houston, I think, in back-to-back postseasons.
Right,
they were destroying Houston in the regular
season.
Although
those games weren't...
taking out really good receivers.
Remember, some of those playoff games weren't really blowouts.
They were early. Later on, they started to get closer.
Yeah,
when O'Brien was there, not when Kubiak was there. Yeah, those games were blowouts.
I remember at least one game before O'Brien where I think in the prime of J.J. Watt's career where they kept one close.
No, I don't think so. I think that was more later. I want to say 15, 16 years like that. I'm talking more the first couple of playoff appearances for the Texans. Mm-hmm. So, again, the notion was we can't beat the Patriots, but we're pretty good. Peyton Manning's gone. Jags and Titans weren't that good at that time. So our division is not really the issue. Can we beat the Patriots? So
far, a lot of these ex-Patriot, the Belichick tree guys are doing well against him.
Well, right, but it's one thing to do well head-to-head. It's another thing to do well as an actual team. Because you could say all you want about the Titans destroying the Patriots last year, the Lions when they destroyed the Patriots. The coaches still weren't, again, amazing coaches. And again, the Giants are really, as an NFC team that's rebuilding, aren't really in position to say, all right, we're going to go get this guy so he can help out against the Patriots. That shouldn't be the logic that they have to go by, because they're an NFC team that plays them every 4 years and they're rebuilding.
No, but
so they're not going to face them in the Super Bowl.
It's a copycat league. Everybody wants to, the Patriots had this dynastic run. Everybody wants to recreate that.
I understand that, but the other problem with that argument is the Patriots are not the trendy team. They don't have what everybody loves in a league all the time. Because remember, there's all these different phases. The Patriots are a team that always tries to counter what the popular things are to do. So I think using that kind of logic, too, is still kind of flawed in the sense where the Patriots are not really a trendy team. They've been what they've always been. There's certain things they like more than others. I think defensively.
Hey, if you want to win, the Patriots are the team.
Right, but they don't do things in all the same way either. The early 2000s Patriots were a defensive team
that was before Brady was what we knew him as.
Right, they were a defensive team that had good pass rushers, power rushers, a decent secondary.
Richard Seymour.
Richard Seymour. And Ty Warren, guys like that. Yep. Vince Wilfork, obviously. So they had big guys at the line of scrimmage, and they were that kind of defense. You had an offensive personnel that had Corey Dillon, who was a good running back. They had Kevin Falk, who was a good pass-catching back. So they had that type of team. Then they shifted it to where they had the big tight ends. They brought in Randy Moss. So they turned into more of a passing team.
Thinking about it, how it started and what it left off as is kind of similar, right?
Right. I think the Patriots are doing all different things. Then they went to Lawrence Maroney, who's a power back. Then all of a sudden they don't have a feature back for years since Maroney got hurt and retired. Then all of a sudden they have a revolving door. Then they bring back the power back when it seems like all the speed backs are trending in the league.
They're always ahead of the curve.
Right, they're bringing LeGarrette Blount. They do different things, and they build their defense to stop those trendy offensive things. Now, I'm not saying they are perfect at it all the time. I think the one thing the Patriots have always been flawed at is stopping running quarterbacks. No matter how they build their defense, they've just always had trouble with that.
Yeah,
but
there's always some styles, and there's always some players that are just immune to the greatness of the coaching of the Patriots. I mean, guys, the Ravens used to always give the Patriots fits. Guys like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, who you can coach all you want, but there's just some players that are just above being coached, like Lamar Jackson. Like, I haven't seen anybody yet this season find a way to slow him down. Mm-hmm. If anybody would have been able to do it, you would have thought it would be Belichick, but
I think it could be the Titans. I think they have a defense that's really built for that kind of thing.
Yeah, that team kind of scares me right now. And it's weird because, as you were saying, once again, 631-300-4477, the number to join if you want to hop in on the discussion. But you were saying before about the switch to the scat backs, yet here we are seeing Derrick Henry, who's this big power guy they're really riding right now. And
they're the exception to the rule right now. And I guess Vrabel kind of brought that kind of thing. They were sticking with being the exception to the rule and building the defense to stop the trendy stuff.
You always look to see who's going to be that one wild card team that gets hot and just believes in what they're doing at that time. And that'd be a team as good as a year and as great as the Ravens have looked at times this year. That's a scary matchup.
Right.
I would
just
not.
With the way they built their defense. Outside rushing defenses always give running quarterbacks fits more than base defenses or bigger type defenses, whatever. Mm-hmm. They got two fast middle linebackers if Jayon Brown does play.
Right.
They got speed corners, which can definitely keep up with Lamar Jackson. Remember what the Chargers did last year. They put a bunch of corners in the game to keep up with the speed of Lamar Jackson. Tennessee could do that too.
Right.
And same with Byard. He's a fast safety. So I think they have all that in terms of being able to contain him. I don't think they'll be able to completely stop him because he's still very good and he's still going to innovate the way he does. But
he's so young and he's well rested too.
Right.
Like I don't know. I'm excited to watch the game because I think so. Vrabel wasn't a New England coach, but obviously he played for New England, so he knows some of the ways of New England. So I think he can come up with a game plan. Like, the best thing to do is to own time of possession, to just run the ball, just ride Derrick Henry and keep Lamar Jackson off the field as much as you can.
Well, sure.
And just win time of possession, and don't make mistakes.
Right. That's what any running and defense teams do. That's their mantra.
But then it's kind of like it's kind of a wash because the Ravens could easily do that.
The Ravens could do that too, and the Ravens could stop the run. So
right.
That's going to make it a lot harder.
It's going to be a great matchup.
Right. So looking at that though, going back to what I was saying, with the exception to the rule, the Patriots and the Titans were very similar, which they decided to trend in that direction, where they're building the defense to stop the popular thing, which in this current case is a lot of good running RPO offenses now. And offensively, they do completely different things. The Patriots, again, always have been a tight end primary offense, and they did that before it was popular.
Yep.
They did the scat back thing before it was popular. Now
everybody always tries to copy them.
Right. And again, some have succeeded with it. The Saints have done a great job succeeding with pass-catching running backs, kind of like the Patriots do. Before they really had Kamara and Ingram and those guys, they were succeeding with scat back type guys. Remember Pierre Thomas and Travaris Cadet and guys like that. They were succeeding with it. But again, not every team was. It's not something that's duplicatable. And again, that's why I think when you don't have the power to micromanage stuff from what to do on 3rd down and 2 at 7 minutes and 20 seconds, micromanaging that to also micromanaging the roster the way Belichick does. He poaches guys off of teams that fit a specialty in terms of, if you're a bench player, all right, I'm going to bring you in speed rushing situations. I'm going to bring you in specifically to spy the quarterback.
Nobody better
Stuff
at
like
that than Belichick.
He micromanages this roster. He'll cut players that don't fit that particular trend, and he'll poach players from other teams. And obviously, he drafts well as well, so that helps for that factor. The Patriots ever change their roster so much, which is why it's very hard to duplicate. They've only had a couple constants. They've always had more quicker at the line of scrimmage, but not pure speed type receivers. They've always had bigger corners and bigger physical middle linebackers, and even outside linebackers that are base type linebackers. receivers. But those are really the only constants in terms of the way they build their teams. And heavy tight end offense.
It's kind of crazy to think about. I mean, they've had this dynastic run, of 20 years, and I mean, when's the last time they had a high draft pick? Like they're doing it all, and then they've had draft picks
Gerard
forfeited.
Mayo, I think, was the highest draft pick they had in a while. He was pick 11. I think that was it, though. I think that was their only pick in the teens.
I mean, they've managed to maintain this with basically, I mean, it's just the genius of Belichick, just finding players in
right.
I mean, they'll take them from anywhere. Late in the draft, teams didn't know how to use certain guys, and
right.
I mean, it's really remarkable what they've done. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know if this is it for Brady, and don't know how long Belichick wants to coach, but I mean, wow, that's just been remarkable. And so yeah, we got a new. Well, we still have one team that has not filled its vacancy yet, right? Just the Browns? Or
Just
is there
the
anyone
Browns
else
for the
I'm not
time
thinking of?
being, but again, I think there still could be other coaches that get fired.
You think so?
Yeah, it's possible. Right now,
This late?
I think it's just the start of the off season. It's the fact that all these hires happen so quickly is what's surprising.
Yeah.
But besides Atlanta, I don't think anyone specifically announced that they're of any fringe team that they are keeping their head coach.
Detroit said they were keeping Patricia.
Right, but I don't think Patricia's really, his job was really that much at risk. What's surprising is they kept their GM, because their GM's horrible. I don't know why they kept him. Talk about a team that does not draft well. That would be the Lions. Yeah, Calvin Johnson fall into your lap, and that's really it.
Yeah, and then so yeah, just the Browns. I wonder who do you think's going to go there?
It should be Bieniemy. I think that's the best fit for them, but I don't know.
Either that or McDaniels. I've been hearing.
I don't think McDaniels would fit that at all.
He's from Ohio, supposedly. So
I don't know. I'm worried about McDaniels. He wasn't a great head coach with a talented Broncos team. Again, they didn't have the quarterback. Tebow wasn't a great quarterback, but they had receiving talent. They had no Sean Marino as a good running back. I mean, they had an older Willis McGahee, which wasn't great, but
you know what's crazy about?
It still was a pretty good team, and he had trouble offensively coaching that to its full potential in what was a pretty weak division. So I don't know how much they're going to be able to do that with Cleveland, again, now with all the personalities. I think they really need somebody that will actually use that offense to full potential. But also, again, Bieniemy, I think, is a guy, too, that I don't think he's light on his players either. I think he's tough on the running backs when he was with the Chiefs for a while. Even when the Chiefs were more of a running team, he was tough on the running backs.
I think he'll end up being a good coach once he gets the opportunity. I don't know.
Think he will, too. I wanted him for the Giants. Now, Kevin over here, who's going to come on air after the break, he brought up Tom Coughlin. Now, that's definitely interesting.
Yeah, but after being let go by the Jaguars, I don't know that I don't think he's coming back.
I think there's some merit to it. Not Coughlin specifically going to the Browns, but I think there's some merit to him stepping down from that position. Because I don't think he didn't want to coach. I still think he wanted to coach when he was let go by the Giants.
Well, yeah, you're right about that.
Remember, he got rumors from the 49ers. He got rumors from the Eagles. I think it was I thought the perfect fit for him would have been Cincinnati at that time, because I thought they should have let go of Marvin Lewis after that stupid playoff debacle against the Steelers. But that didn't happen. Now, I still think he wants to coach, and I still think for an older guy,
how old is he?
He's I think 71 years old or something like that. But he's always been a high-energy older guy, so
he might be older than
I
that.
I think there's some merit to him still wanting to coach. Now, would he want to coach the Browns? I don't know. There's no ties for him. I think if Jacksonville were to fire Marone, I think he would have probably tried to coach there again. But
73.
I don't see him being the Browns guy. But I mean, would it be a bad thing? No, because that team needs discipline. That team had no discipline last year.
Yeah, oh my God.
So
they need the polar opposite of what they had.
Would it work? Possibly, because that team does need discipline. But again, like I said, there's younger players nowadays, for whatever reason. I guess it's just the generational gap, the age gap, whatever. It just doesn't seem like they do well under those types of tougher nosed coaches. So that could be the one thing that could shy teams away from a Tom Coughlin. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, because I think discipline is needed no matter what.
Yeah,
and
I think
that's on you as the athlete, but it's also a selling point for athletes to stay there, too.
It's got to be a combination of the two. You got to be able to be a disciplinarian, but in a way that can relate to the current athlete. And I think the two are possible, because you need a person who can hold these players accountable, and for that you need somebody who's a disciplinarian, I think.
Right. And I think they do exist. It's just hard to find, and whether you're one extreme or the other, to start, like Coughlin was when he first started with the Giants, you have to evolve to some level with that.
And he lightened up a little bit, and that's
Coughlin,
when they went on their
Coughlin
Super Bowl
progressively lighted up from what he was originally, but he still was tough on the players. Now, would that work with this just age group of athletes that?
But I heard from I'm pretty sure Jarvis Landry was quoted. They asked him what they were looking for in a coach, and I'm pretty sure he was quoted saying, like, we need leadership. Like, we need somebody.
Absolutely. But leadership can also come without having to be a stickler all the time. And with such a young team like the Browns, that could be something that could not work. Now, again, would I have them shy away from going after Tom Coughlin if that was the case? No, and I don't think. And if Coughlin wants to go there, I don't think they would not give him an interview. I'm just saying, would it work with all those young players is another question, too. Now, they definitely need discipline because Freddie Kitchens was terrible, and that team was highly penalized all year long. Right. That team was highly penalized all year long, so they definitely do need some level of discipline. But again, they also, and this is the other problem Kitchens had, they also need to get that offense to full throttle because he was wasting such talented players. Besides Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb had a great year.
Yeah, he did have a very good year. But
Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry were running 5-yard simple routes all the time.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield was throwing short passes, and then when he wanted to throw deep, he threw deep, but he would force the ball a lot of the time, and that was, again, not always the play call either. So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, I wonder who they're going to go with.
They should go with Bieniemy. Just, again, you want to talk about a good coaching tree. Andy Reid's got a nice coaching tree.
Yeah.
So you got that. And
they said they're going to give control to, whoever wants to come in there.
Which is fine. I have for the Browns' sake, which has had such a bad front office.
Yeah, they kind of need that.
They kind of need that kind of guy. I didn't want it for the Giants because I think, not that their GMs have been good lately, but I think in terms of the influence of the front office, I think it's going to be still very hard to get those ways across. The Giants are still kind of old school. The Browns have just been searching for identity for years. The Panthers, like we were saying with Rule, him getting control I don't think would have been a good idea, but I think what he has control of doing is good because the Panthers have been a well-run organization. The Browns have been looking for answers with every GM imaginable. So them giving a big-name coach control, which is why they were in rumors with McCarthy last year, could be the answer. Now, if it's Bieniemy, we'll see how he does as a quote-unquote GM role, too, because that, I don't know. That's always a wild card, too. You could be a coach that's good at player development. You could be a coach that's a good strategist. You could be a coach that's good at relating to players. But, again, we don't know how he would be in that kind of control role either. So it's definitely interesting. I still think he would be the best coach out there for Cleveland, but I agree where they need to have some level of control aspect to take away from the front office because that front office has been
abysmal,
awful since their franchise existed.
Yeah, I mean, the only team that might have been worse than the Giants in the last few years.
In terms of front office, they've been better than the Giants, I'll say that. But
just the organization in general.
Good. Well, yeah, the organization has been corrupt for a while now. They had a couple playoff years, their first, I think, 3 years of existence out of the 5, but I think since 2003 they've been easily the most corrupt team in football, and they've tried a lot of different things. It just hasn't worked, and the one thing they haven't really tried is giving a coach that kind of control, man. Maybe that's just all they need.
Yeah, sometimes you got to change what you're doing. What they've been doing obviously has not worked, so they had to try something different. When do we got to break here, Speedy?
Pretty soon, because usually we're going to do 15-minute segments or so.
The NFC
we definitely went over.
The NFC East now is very interesting as far as the We have 3 new coaches, and Doug Peterson hasn't been. It's only been 3-4 seasons there.
He's entering his 5th season.
Entering his 5th now.
Yep.
So wow, so we got Ron Rivera with a young Washington team, which could have a very good defense next season, especially if they end up drafting what's his face. The
Redskins?
The Redskins, yeah. They get the 2nd pick.
Right.
I can't think of Chase Young, right?
Chase Young. I mean, that's interesting, though, because they have a lot of front 7 talent. Do
they do.
Do they really? I mean,
why not
anyone
go for
could use Chase Young. It's like the Niners with Nick Bosa. They didn't need him, but it's a great luxury to have.
Exactly, and look what it's done for him.
This is my thing, though. The Redskins need so much on offense. Where if you get a great trade package to get tons of other first and second round picks,
team who needs a quarterback.
No, not even that. A team that could use Chase Young too. I'm talking about Chase Young. And I've said this for a while. I think this is the perfect.
The Giants could use him.
Well, of course, the Giants could use it, but do the Giants want to afford to trade all that draft capital? Because again,
they have a lot of holes.
The Redskins are one of those teams where they have a good defense. They have a defense that has a lot of young talent. Most of it's in the front 7, but they have a good safety.
But why not add a once-in-a-generation pass rusher?
No, I know that. I'm just saying if the offer is there. I'm not saying to sell low on the draft.
Oh, yeah, no, you always have to hear.
I just want to
definitely have to see the offer, yeah.
But I think there's a perfect match. I really do.
Who?
Atlanta.
Where are they
Atlanta, I think it's 15 or something like that. But this is the thing. They don't need much. They need maybe a corner.
Yeah, I'm surprised they had such a disappointing season.
They're a really talented team.
But they had a weird season because they beat some good teams. Well,
they were good in the second half of the season. They just had a dud start.
They beat the Niners. They beat the Saints, right?
Right. They're a talented team that should have never been below 500.
Right.
They, I think, have a top 5 roster in football, assuming they keep everybody, because there's some guys that will be free agents. But again, they don't need much. They need maybe another corner, maybe a backup running back, because Devontae Freeman's been injury prone, and obviously their other running backs didn't really play well. But the big thing they need is pass rush. They could not get to the quarterback at all. Besides that one game against the Saints where they had 6 sacks. Grady Jarrett's good, but Vic Beasley, after that 15-sack season, has been disappointing. Tack McKinley's been hurt. So they just need that in the worst way. And they don't need much else. So if you're the Redskins, if Atlanta offers you your first rounder next year, because remember, Atlanta has 2 twos, too. They got one for the Patriots. You give them a second. You give them a second. Maybe you give them another draft pick next year, too. Are you going to pass it up if you're the Redskins when you need so much on offense like they do? And maybe Atlanta gives you an offensive player, too. Maybe they give you one of the slot receivers. Maybe they give you an Austin Hooper maybe in that kind of deal. Because I think if they sign him, maybe – I think he has 1 year left on his contract. Give Dwayne Haskins a target like Hooper, who had a nice year.
Well,
would you really pass that up considering your needs?
Terry, what's his name? McLaurin.
He's one player though. He's a nice player, but he's one player.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they do have more holes to fill on offense, so that might that would be a pretty good suitor.
In this kind of receiver draft, and now needing offensive line with Trent Williams being gone, most very likely because he's pissed at them.
I don't blame him.
Are you going to pass that kind of offer up if you're the Redskins, if the Falcons offer you that kind of thing?
And if it's an offer they can't refuse.
Right, and I think it works really well. I think it could work really well for both teams. Now, I'm not saying if the Redskins should sell low on the pick. If Chase Young's there, Chase Young's there, and if you're not getting the offer, take him.
Right.
Take the overload.
It's an easy pick to make.
You're doing what the Niners do with Nick Bosa. You don't need him, but it's a great luxury.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think he'll be better than Nick Bosa. I think Nick Bosa is still a better player, but he's still going to be very similarly amazing.
He'll be very good.
I think if the draft's not there, if it's not there, pick him. And Ron Rivera's going to love him anyway. He loves those kinds of power rushing type pass rushers. So I think it's the perfect fit for his kind of defense.
Oh yeah.
But again, at the same time, when you're rebuilding this Redskins team, who again they don't need much, but they just need a lot on offense. They really need to focus on that and trust the defense they already have, because they have Ryan Kerrigan. They just drafted Montez Sweat. They have talented young linebackers, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne. This is a good defense.
It's a good
in the
defense,
front seven.
but
they need corners. They need corners, but again, there's no corner really worth taking that early.
I'd have to see what the offer is, because if you're already close enough on defense, if you add Chase Young, a good defense can take you a long way. I mean, look at Chicago from a year ago. I mean, terrible offense, but the defense brought them close enough. I mean, they should have won against the Eagles.
Okay.
And they have a defensive-minded head coach. I don't know. I always feel like if your strength is closer on defense, and you have the opportunity to pick a guy like Chase Young, that's what I would do.
I'm not saying to sell
it all depends
low,
on the offer.
But I really think the Falcons are one of those teams that can afford to give him that kind of big package because they don't need much, and they really need.
That's
Chase
who
Young.
they need. Yeah.
When you look at the top 10 and even a couple of the picks before the Falcons, because I think they're 15 if I remember correctly, there's not a lot of team where pass rush is their quote-unquote biggest need. And if it is, a team like the Jets, a team like Miami, it's not their only need where they can afford to trade all of what they would have to trade up to get to 2 for a player like Chase Young.
I feel like everybody needs a pass rusher, though.
Of course. But who is in that position to give up that much draft capital either?
Right.
The Falcons are one of the teams.
You're saying they don't have much. They don't need much else.
Right.
So that would be the one thing that they need.
Would Miami trade their pick and pick 27 to the Redskins for number 2? I don't think they should.
Yeah, no,
that would be kind of dumb. Even them trading one of their seconds, I think, just to move up 3 spots, I think would be kind of dumb. They need so much where they can't afford to do that. They need to keep all their draft picks.
Right.
Same thing with a team like the Giants. The Giants, I'd love for Chase Young to be a Giant, but it's going to be tough for them to trade into an in-division rival, and they need so much as it is where they can't afford to trade so much draft capital. Because Chase Young is that good of a prospect where he's going to, if you're trading that pick for him, it's going to warrant a lot. That's why the Redskins will take him if he's available in, I think, 90% of circumstances. But I'm just saying, if they get that kind of offer, being it's not a huge need for them, don't be surprised if they try to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting. Draft day is going to be fun because there's going to be I don't know what's going to happen with all these quarterbacks. You know, where is Tua going to go? Who's going to surprise everybody and trade up? Where does Chase Young go? I can't wait, man. The NFL is just an absolute juggernaut. And there's so many good young players in the league right now, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see who gets drafted where. And, you know, the New York teams have been struggling for the last couple of seasons, and they have where are the Jets picking? What is it, 6?
No, I think the Jets are all the way at 9 or something like that.
9. Well, hopefully we got the right guy in place in Joe Douglas to help build the roster
Douglas,
and support.
I think he'll do well because I think him learning from Ozzie Newsome and Howie Roseman in Philadelphia, I think will help, especially when it comes to defense because they really do know defense.
Yeah, I mean, they already had a pretty good defense. I mean, look what Greg Williams got out of that defense after losing Avery Williamson and C.J. Mosley.
Right.
And not really having cornerbacks.
I'm not saying they're going to focus on defense. I'm just saying in terms of building their defense, I think in terms of just finding quality.
It'd be nice to just finally not have an interior defensive lineman drafted for once. It seems like that's all they do now.
That is fair. But at the same time, a lot of those good interior defensive linemen either kept getting suspended or kept getting hurt, which created Leonard Williams play on double teams his whole career, too.
Yeah.
And then now Quinnen Williams with the same kind of circumstances. So,
and once upon a time, Muhammad Wilkerson.
Right. That kind of thing is more on the way the team operated more than the actual player itself, as they're both talented players. But going back to Douglas, he also learned about offensive line from them, too. Philly's got a great offensive line. And that's, I think, the bigger key. The Ravens had a couple good offensive linemen, and now they have a really good team offensive line, too. And some of that was his influence, even though it was mostly Ozzie Newsome. Some of it was his influence. So that'll be the biggest thing I think the Jets need to take away from this because they desperately need offensive linemen.
Mm-hmm. Both New York teams do.
But I think the Giants need defense more than they need offensive linemen right now. But again, if a top player is going to fall to them, you take it.
Of course. All right. Do we need to break here? No, not yet. Yeah. All right. 631-300-4477. Going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Give us a call and weigh in on the new coaching situations across the league. Down to the wire.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You're listening to Down to the Wire. on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
All righty. 631-300-4477 is the number. We were talking about the new coach hirings that came down today. So, yeah, we kind of were a little bit surprised, taken back by Joe Judge as we learned being hired by the Giants today. But I wanted to segue into this week's upcoming games. Kind of wanted to get your guys' takes on that. Also, we're in the middle of an intense game of musical chairs right now, as Speedy has now joined me on this side of the table. I'm used to seeing him operating the boards over there, but now we have Kevin over there who is now on board with us. So welcome aboard, Kevin.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be aboard.
All right, and Speedy, it's gonna be interesting having you on this side of the glass now. I say on this side of the glass because it's just what I always hear in sports radio. So
he's not on the other side of the glass.
We're all on the other side of the glass, technically. So what do you guys think about these upcoming games here? So we got Houston at Kansas City, the Vikings at the Niners, Tennessee at Baltimore, Seattle at Green Bay. So start. What's the first game Saturday?
I think Niners-Vikings.
Is the Niners-Vikings. What do you guys think about that game?
You want me to go first?
Go ahead, Speedy.
I think this one's going to be, the best quality of play between all four matchups. Both these teams are talented. Both these teams have very similar strengths. And I think you're going to see them up against each other. Great defenses, great defensive lines, great run games. Different types of run games, but great run games across the board. And it's definitely going to be very interesting. I could see Minnesota upsetting here because I think them being able to stop the run like they do and having the linebackers and Kendricks and Barr have been good in coverage this year, Harrison Smith as well, to help contain Kittle enough could really make it hard on that offense. And
if Dalvin Cook gets going.
Yeah. Now, Dalvin Cook, he's a great player. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a tough matchup against that kind of run defense. Where I want to see Kevin Stefanski really use him is as a pass-catching back. Because actually I think that's the matchup that could be tough. Because I think the Niners have more pass-rushing type, obviously, edge rushers. And Fred Warner, while he's good in coverage, is better in the middle. If you can use Cook with complicated routes on the outside, that could be something that's definitely interesting. So that's one thing to watch, those two defensive matchups for Minnesota.
Do we have an advanced weather report yet? Do we know how the weather is going to be there? Because
let me find out.
I think a big factor that's not being talked about is we saw Kirk Cousins had a pretty good season, and they just had a very good game against the Saints in the Superdome. I think they play their best football in a dome, and this is going to be a much big. Obviously, it's the opponent. It's going to be a tough matchup for them, but I think them playing on grass now is going to affect the game, as well as the game not starting at 1:00, which, as I mentioned yesterday, for some reason Kirk Cousins seems to play his best at 1:00. Like he's very regimen oriented, so it's going to be interesting to see.
I think most guys are like that, though.
Yeah, but he seems to, for whatever reason, like if I don't have the numbers in front of me to back it up, so for all it sounds like I'm just making this up, but
it will be 55 and sunny.
Oh, all right, so the weather's not going to play a factor, but I think taking them out of a dome, I think they're so used to playing in a dome. I think Dalvin Cook is at his best in a dome, and he was running all over the Saints defense last Sunday, but. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that game because a lot of people think the Vikings do have a chance to upset them, but I don't know. I just feel like the 49ers are a more well-rounded team. I think I trust Garoppolo a little bit more than I trust Kirk Cousins, and the defense of the 49ers I think will really disrupt Cousins.
Yeah, it's possible. If they can't get any protection from that offensive line, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. Their line just needs to play at least average, I think.
Kirk Cousins has to be excellent for them to
Well,
win.
of course, but I think in terms of the offensive
line. And he was against the Saints, but again, watch what happens when they're playing on grass, outdoors, and at 4:00 instead this time.
It depends on the offensive line, though, mostly, because they did a nice job on the Saints, and the Saints are a good pass rush. Mm-hmm. So if they could do at least average level of protection for the Niners, and Kirk Cousins has somewhat of a clean pocket, he could play well. Because those receivers, I think, have some mismatches. And like I said, if they use Dalvin Cook in the passing game, I think that's going to be a very big key, especially if they use him outside on trickier routes. That's going to be a very big key for them if they're going to win this game. I think the defense will be mostly what it'll take for them, just because I think those are the matchups I think they could really expose. Because the Niners, again, like I said, they're a running team mostly. They're second best in the league.
Hey, we got a call, all right.
And I think they got the guys to not take out, because Kittle will still get his, but contain Kittle where he's not going to be a big force in the game. And their biggest thing is big plays. And the Niners don't have big play receivers.
All right, so before we get into any other games, we're going to welcome in a caller here. Who do we have on the line?
Hey, what's going on? It's Brian from Blue Point.
Brian from Blue Point. Welcome aboard. What do you got for us? What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to say, while you guys are on the games for this upcoming week, I think we got a little spoiled last week. I don't think we're going to get games this week. I think there's going to be a couple of big blowouts. Although the first halves of some of the games last week were a little slow.
Right.
We had some good finishes, nice tight games. So,
well, I think, what games do you think are going to be blowouts?
I don't. It's hard to say at this point. I'm not big into the sports betting and stuff like that. But we got a few really good teams here that are expected to have pretty big. I think they were saying what the spread for one of the games is almost 7 points, 6, 7 points, something like that.
I believe I heard them early on. I'm pretty sure the Chiefs were favored over Houston by like 9 or 10 points, and Baltimore, I believe, was favored by like 9 points as well. But that, I think, moved as a lot of people started betting on Tennessee,
right.
So I think it shrunk a little bit. But you're right. So those two numbers were a little bit higher. I think the other ones were a little bit closer.
I believe the game to watch would be the Seahawks and the Packers.
Well, and that's going to be some bad weather from what I've been hearing. So, which?
Right.
Go ahead, Brian.
So the main reason for the call, sorry to jump around on topics with you, is I wanted to talk a little bit about the Giants signing this guy Judge.
Yeah, no, we were talking about that before. So what's your take on it?
Essentially, I'm not a huge sports guy. I don't follow as much as a lot of people do. But from my experience playing, it's hard to get behind this guy. I know it's early. We know very little about him. Although I was listening to Francesca before, and he was talking him up a storm. Singing this guy's praises, which I'm a little surprised by. As you guys were talking about before, he's under Belichick, which hasn't exactly had a lot of success in the past. Not that means a whole lot, but the biggest thing is he's a special teams guy. Granted, he was branching out a little, but to me that's a big leap to go from a special teams to head coach of a football team, and no less a New York football team. There's always stigma of it's tough to play in New York, and to be honest, I think it's kind of true.
But from what I've been hearing about this guy, he really seems to command the respect of the players on his team. Like, I heard somebody who covers the Patriots saying he's very loud. Like, he really has a good grasp on the team. And as you said, so he wasn't just the special teams guy. He was the wide receivers coach as of this year.
He was the wide receivers coach in a year where the receivers were moving around a lot, where it's tough really to judge either way on him with that. I think the special teams is more of the bigger thing, where he was a good special teams guy. The Patriots always had good special teams gunners, and obviously kicking and punting. They've done very good.
Yeah, I mean, he clearly was a good special teams coach.
Well, he was, right.
Yeah, well,
and that's not really where I'm knocking him, the hire.
Right. The Patriots definitely focus a lot on special teams, so you got to assume that he's one of the best at his practice. And, I heard a couple of guys on talk radio mention, the Harbaugh, the early comparisons already, which, it's hard to say. Obviously we don't know. It's still early on. And let's be honest, the Patriots, he might have been doing the wide receivers, but their offensive tools this year are pretty much null and void, I mean,
right,
I had Edelman on my team, and, he was one of my better players, but still, not performing to what he has in the past. And, the whole offense really wasn't there for the Patriots, which is probably why they're knocked out right now because the defense is phenomenal.
So I just realized who this is, by the way. So you're a Giant fan. Who did you want as the head coach?
I was, favoring McCarthy. Again, I don't have a extensive knowledge like some of these other guys. Obviously these talk radio guys and, the coaches and stuff for these teams obviously know way more than me. But from what I was looking at, I liked McCarthy. He has experience. Obviously, him having a Super Bowl really, is big. But he has experience in the league, and he did fairly well with Green Bay. Not great, but he did pretty well. And the biggest thing is, for me, and this is why I'm a little weary about Judge coming in, is that we have a brand-new rookie quarterback who played a little more than half a season so far, and we need the type of coach that has the experience in the league to mold this guy. I don't want to see, for lack of a better comparison, something that the Jets may do. And,
it seems like the Giants have been following in the Jets' footsteps lately.
It does kind of seem that way. But, I don't want to see them do something like that and essentially ruin this kid's career. Everyone's talking about the potential that he may have, that he looks very good so far early. So we really need
the potential's there, but so I wouldn't get too caught up on the fact that they got this guy Judge, and it. So I hear your concern, but we don't know exactly who he's bringing in yet as his coordinator. So I think depending on who he brings in for the offensive coordinator, maybe that guy is willing to, is a quarterback guru or something. So it's really tough to say until we know who he's bringing in as the coordinator.
I'm a fan, but that's essentially what he was claimed to be, was the quarterback guru. And I don't necessarily think we need quite that extensive, but not to say that Judge is not going to be any good at helping Jones out, but we don't know. It's kind of, to me, this move is kind of a big risk. It's a big leap of faith, which at this point in Jones's career, do we really want to take that leap of faith? Because truthfully, and as a Giants fan, I don't think we're going to be good for at least a couple years, even with Jones, even if he performs as good as he can. Because let's face it, the rest of the team is really struggling. The offensive line is pretty much non-existent, and there's a lot of holes in a lot of places that we really need to fill. So my primary concern right now is developing our young talent. Developing Jones and bringing them up. Not to mention the fact that, let's be honest, we look kind of like a little stupid in this whole situation, the way it went down, and we have the egg on our face situation because we're talking about the guy who signed with Carolina. Oh, he's the big deal. He's the big deal. Forget about McCarthy. Rule.
I think he was a better fit in Carolina, though, than he was with the Giants.
You're probably right, but listening to sports radio over the past week or so,
that's the guy that the Giants wanted, it seemed like.
The Giants were like all in on Rule, and that's what they wanted, and then they let him go to Carolina and take it. Granted, in his defense, it's a man contract, and the Giants would have never even come close to giving him that type of money for that long. So good for him, but it makes us look kind of like caught with our pants down now. It's like, all right, well, we didn't get McCarthy, we didn't get Rule, we didn't get the other guy who went to Washington.
What do we do? Joe Judge.
No, Judge is who we got. The guy who went to Washington.
Oh, Rivera. Yeah, I'm saying it just seemed like it seemed like a bit of a panic. Like I don't know. It doesn't seem like.
It seemed like it just wanted, I think, their guy kind of thing, and Jerry Reese did the same thing
they
when he was
him
GM.
The other day. So
yeah, but would you have Jerry Reese or Dave Gettleman?
Neither.
They just hot right then and there. They waited until this situation arose where Rule signed somewhere else, and they were left to their last option. Essentially, that's the way it seemed to me. Which doesn't bode well. And as good as Jones, Jones' pickup was, and all this other stuff. we really try to put our faith in Gettleman yet. I don't know. I haven't. So.
Some of his draft picks were good this year, so I think that's why he ended up getting another chance. But he's definitely still a hot seat GM right now.
Oh, absolutely.
And especially with this kind of really out there coaching hire, this is going to say a lot about his judgment of these coaches. Because this is Bill Belichick coaching tree, which historically has not worked. You've got a really out there kind of not lower level, but a lesser known special teams coach. And again, I'm not even knocking the special teams notion. There are good special teams coaches in the league. But you're kind of reaching for that kind of thing. You're reaching for a younger guy that, again, is not really – when you reach for a younger guy, usually it's based on a trend. They didn't really do that. It's really just out there. You kind of – and if you're trying to do a disciplined guy, I understand that. You don't really just have to go to the Patriots. There are other teams that are disciplined football teams that work with younger players well. So it seemed like a bit of just an out there kind of thing. Now, I always say, and I say this with teams too, no experience is not negative experience. So I will judge that as it is. But it still was really out there in terms of what they did.
I thought they were going to sign Ron Rivera.
And
because him and Dave Gettleman, didn't they go to the Super Bowl?
Rivera, that situation kind of unfolded. Like the Redskins fired their coach in the middle of the season, and so did the Panthers fire Ron Rivera. So that seemed like kind of a collision course waiting to happen. But
maybe the Giants should have done the same.
Yeah.
But I got to run, Steve. Good luck with everything. I'll talk to you guys.
All right, Brian. Thanks for the call, man. All right. So the one thing I'll say about this hire, I think the offense performed well this season. I think you saw flashes from Daniel Jones. Obviously, we know what Saquon can be.
Yes.
I think I really like Sterling Shepard.
If he stays healthy.
I like what we saw out of Darius Slayton. Well, the big, if he stays healthy, is the tight end.
Tight end. Yep, Evan Ingram.
Ingram.
But Red Ellison is nice.
Yeah, he's actually. I think they should just commit to him.
Smith.
He's a blocking
Caden Smith is good.
He's become a lot better of a pass catcher.
Caden Smith has been really good.
Yeah. So I actually think the offense is in pretty decent shape. I mean, obviously they could.
Tate's been good.
Yeah, and Tate.
But he's older and be a speed receiver. I feel like he could start regressing.
No, but I think there's solid enough weapons there. The quarterback showed you signs. You really need somebody to hold everything else accountable on the team, and it all depends on who else he brings in. Because you hope that he brings in some experienced coaches because it is his first time coaching. But I think there's potential for this team to turn it around. Obviously, it's not going to happen this season, but I mean, the pieces are there for the offense. So as long as they find some good, valuable draft choices, I think they could turn this around in a couple of years. Because they have the most important position. They have the quarterback, it seems. And they have a good young running back to go with them. So, yeah, well, we'll see. It is an unknown commodity, but only time will tell. We were talking about the games before, the upcoming games, so we discussed the first one on Saturday. The next game is Tennessee at Baltimore.
Very good game.
What do you think about that, Kevin?
Ryan Tannehill has been one of the hottest quarterbacks in the league, so I wouldn't count him out because he's been very dangerous. And Derrick Henry's been a bull.
Yeah, that's who I would worry. If I was Baltimore, that's what I'd be most worried about after seeing what he did to New England.
Yep.
What do you think, Speedy?
I would be worried, yeah. I would be worried about Derrick Henry. The thing is, the Ravens' front seven personnel and overall run defense is still better than the Patriots, where I think they got a better shot in terms of just the way they play defense, in terms of obviously not stopping him, like I was saying with Kittle, but just containing him enough where he's not going to dominate the whole
game. Slow him down
as
much as you can.
The Patriots' offense, whenever facing those types of – or the Patriots' defense, my bad. When facing those types of offenses with a lot of good skill players on it, they tend to let teams run, and they'll try to double team the top receiver, which is what they did with the Titans. A.J. Brown was playing well. They took him out. Mm-hmm. They were going to let Derrick Henry run and stop him when they needed to. But the problem is Derrick Henry got a first down on every run. Usually they say, all right, we'll let you get 6 yards here, 4 yards here. he got a first down on pretty much every run and dominated. So they had no answer for that, and that's exactly what Ray Rice did to them in 2009. Same kind of thing, and here they are running in defense, beating the Patriots.
We have another call coming in.
Oh, we do? All right. So we got and the one thing I will say about that is let's not get caught up in the fact that it was Tom Brady that they were playing, but that Patriot offense was nothing to they're not that impressive of an offense.
Jacoby Myers.
And now they're going up against Baltimore, who's one of the most impressive offenses that we've seen in a while. So do we have the other caller on the line?
No, they disconnected.
All right. So on Sunday, we have Kansas City. Yeah, Houston at Kansas City.
Kansas City's going to win, and I picked them to come out of the AFC. Because...
Over Baltimore, really?
Yes, because they have a very dangerous wide receiving core.
That's true.
Patrick Mahomes.
I really hope we end up with that matchup in the AFC Championship game. That would be the most. To me, that would be the Super Bowl. If we could see,
I want to see the Chiefs
Kansas
and the
City
Packers in the Super Bowl.
Well, that would be I mean, the two of the most
like
talented arm talents that we've ever seen.
Packers, my second favorite team.
Either one would be interesting, but I really want to see the Ravens and Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. I think that'll be just must-watch TV. And then the final game, Seattle at Green Bay.
Yeah.
And you are expecting the Packers to come out of that one?
Yes. I would think if the Seahawks have a chance, they're going to have to need Marshawn Lynch to have at least 60 to 70 yards.
So this is going to be an interesting game because
Pete Carroll already announced he's giving Marshawn Lynch more carries in this upcoming game.
They kind of have each of the quarterbacks in that game have very similar numbers this season. They both threw something like 25 to 30 touchdowns,
Aaron Rodgers
and
would
like
have more if his defense wasn't. If Aaron Jones didn't do what he did this year, Aaron Rodgers would have to carry more. But since
it's a more balanced team.
Yeah, since Aaron Jones is over 16 touchdowns, he doesn't need to carry the team as he used to.
Right. But I wouldn't count out Russell Wilson because, I mean, that guy has just been a special player ever since he came into the league. I mean, don't forget the Seahawks paid Matt Flynn all that money, and then here's this third-round draft pick coming in, winning the job, going to 2 Super Bowls, winning one of them, in the running for the MVP this season. I can't count them out.
He did well with that before.
I got the Packers in that game.
Yeah, and the NFC Championship. You know what? If the Packers win, Niners would be a pretty damn good.
The Packers versus the Vikings, because unless the Packers figure out what they did from the last matchup, because the last time Packers versus San Francisco, they only had 8 points.
Oh, geez. That's right. I remember that. That was a strange game.
And Aaron Rodgers was benched.
Yeah, that was strange
But
to see.
the defense for San Francisco hasn't been the same. They've given up over 20 points every game since.
Yeah, I would expect the defense to pick it up in the playoffs, though. I think they're going to be, especially having the first round bye. They're a little rested.
Easy, the Vikings isn't.
No, none of these games are going to be easy, but I can't wait to see. To me, the championship weekend is going to be. I mean, I can't wait to see what the matchups are. I really hope that we get. I want to see Kansas City and Baltimore. That's what I want to see. To me, that's the Super Bowl.
If Tennessee beats Baltimore, that would be the shock of the season.
Really?
Would it though?
I think that game will be close. That defense has a good identity for the Ravens type of offense.
I want the Titans to win because the Titans have shown they're not scared of who they're up against, no matter if they're away or home.
But they have, so they slowed down Tom Brady and the Patriots, but they have not seen what. I don't know. I think Baltimore's offense is going to be too hard to stop.
Has Tennessee beaten Kansas City this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, they could beat the Chiefs. I think he's.
But they're playing. Yeah, the Ravens. I don't. I mean, just
if you
as
slow down Lamar, there's a chance.
Yeah, but that's a lot easier said than done.
I know. Obviously, he's the MVP.
A well-rested, and he didn't have to play his last game of the season, so he's really had several weeks off now. So he's going to be ready to go. And I don't know what Tennessee's injury situation is. Do they have anybody who they lost in this game? I'm not sure.
Jayon Brown, that's a big one.
So we don't know if he's playing?
Yeah, because that's a guy with speed as a middle linebacker that could definitely play as a QB spy kind of role on Lamar Jackson. And
defense is very underrated.
In coverage, because he likes to go to the pass-catching backs a lot of the time. That's a big one if he doesn't play. Now, the backups for Tennessee did play well in that game, but Jayon Brown is one of the better, faster young middle linebackers in the league right now. And Rashaan Evans played very well, but if Lamar Jackson runs his way and decides, all right, I'm not going to run this way this time, he could go run the other way, and then they'll have to either specially prepare for that side, or, again, they're going to have to maybe just let him have it at times, and that's going to be hard. So if Jayon Brown doesn't play, that'll be big, because Rashaan Evans can only do so much on that defense.
That's why that first-round bye is so important. So important, because that extra rest goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think they definitely have the defense to be able to do it if he does play, because I think that's a big key. Outside rushers, which they're fast, they have depth in that area, and they tend to do well against running quarterbacks. So that's the biggest thing. You got a faster corner, Adoree Jackson. You saw the Chargers use the blitzing of the DBs, the QB spies with the DBs. Don't be surprised if they do something like that with Adoree Jackson, who has kick returner speed. So,
but
they have matchups that work for that kind of thing.
So last year's a lot different because they didn't have the full offseason of building the offense around Lamar. So the Chargers took advantage of a more one-dimensional Lamar Jackson.
Here's the thing, though, with that. Besides Mark Ingram, it's not really that different of an offense. The receivers are still
you got Hollywood Brown, you got the Andrews.
Mark Andrews was there last year. He was there last year, and he was there last year too. Hollywood Brown.
They have like the 3 tight ends now.
Yeah, but
right?
all 3 of them were there last year too. Hayden Hurst was just hurt all the time.
Who did they draft? I thought they drafted somebody this year though.
No, they drafted Hayden Hurst in the first round last year. But he was just always hurt. So
it's kind of like we're seeing him.
You didn't see him as much, but you still saw Boyle and you still saw Mark Andrews, and that's why I'm saying it's not really much different. If Marquise Brown was statistically amazing, okay, but he's not. He's not. He has had probably 3-4 great games.
Yeah, but it's somebody that you have to account for, though.
Right, but
Lamar
I think they could. Right, but I don't know if it's really that either. I think it's more. The Titans can trust talent to do that and not specific game planning to do that. Because Logan Ryan's a good enough corner, and if they want to put Adoree Jackson to match his speed, he's a good enough corner. I think he's a better player than Marquise Brown is right now. So I think they could just trust talent to do that. When it comes to a game planning perspective and an identity of a defense, the Titans have all the rest to be able to do that. I don't think Marquise Brown is a big enough force in order to be that much of a difference maker. Mark Andrews is the one I'm more afraid of because the Titans have smaller linebackers and safeties that don't play well against bigger tight ends.
I think Tannehill is going to have to outduel Lamar.
That ain't going to happen.
If they're going to have to, if they win.
Yeah, it's going to take a spectacular game.
This is not real. I don't. As much as these 2 quarterbacks have been hot lately, I feel like this is going to be.
Tannehill's 23-7.
I really don't know if this is going to be a quarterback game. I think it's going to be a defense game. I really do.
All right, I want to try something out here. I'll spruce things up a little bit, play a little game. What do you guys say?
Sure.
It's a little trivia game. I'll explain how this works. Okay? I'm going to call this For a Dollar. I'm going to quiz you guys for $1. Okay? So I have a card in front of me of a athlete. I'm going to read you 10 clues as to who the athlete is. Now, at any point, if you think you know who it is, you can say it, but you only get one guess.
All right.
So each clue starts off very vague, gets more specific until it eventually reveals his initials, and
so 10 clues.
You'll be able to get it. 10 clues.
Okay.
All right, ready? So who am I? I'm a famous athlete. I speak 3 different languages fluently. I met my wife at the 2000 Sydney Olympics. I have twin daughters. My shots are very accurate. I'm good on both grass and clay. I see lots of love when I work. I earned an Olympic gold medal in 2000. Anytime you think you know it, you say it.
Rafael Nadal?
No.
Well, he wins on clay a lot.
I earned an Olympic gold medal in 2008. In 2012, I won my 7th Wimbledon trophy. Who am I with the initials RF?
Roger Federer.
Hey!
There you go.
Sorry, Speedy. So Kevin wins the $1. All right. Just wanted to try that out, see how that went. Want to talk NBA at all?
Yeah.
Sure, we could do some NBA. We got some trade deadlines rumors going around, and definitely some interesting. Kyle Kuzma was definitely one of them.
Yeah, because the Lakers need a playmaking point guard.
So, who are they looking?
They're looking at DJ Augustine from the Magic.
They don't need to give up Kuzma for that.
No, I'm saying they're at the trade deadline. They're looking for a playmaking point guard because Rondo hasn't been the same as he has in the past. So they're looking for a playmaking point guard.
Mm-hmm. No, I just don't think they'll need to trade Kuzma for that. I think they could do better. I think they could do better for Kuzma.
So, what do we think so far of the
Darren Collison too? They're looking at because
again an older player. They're not going to need to trade Kyle Kuzma for.
So who should they be looking for?
Their priority is a playmaking point guard.
Right, but I don't think they're going to need to do any large-scale trades for that.
Who should they be targeting? Because obviously we expect the Lakers to be one of the top teams. We expect the Clippers to be one of the. So who's the sought-after piece that's going to take one of those teams over the top?
I think one option, I wouldn't trade him because I do think they'll be good in the second half. But if they don't come back strong in the second half, one option could be C.J. McCollum because both those teams could use a shooter. Everyone could use shooters in this day and age now. And we know LeBron, he always wants three-point shooters.
That would be something in L.A.
And that would be the kind of player, that's something you could give up Kuzma for because he's that good of a player.
Yeah.
He's been consistent his whole career. Yeah. And he can also pass, too. It's not like he's just a shooter either. He could also pass. That's something I'd be willing to give up Kuzma. You probably have to give up a little more than that, but that's something I'd be willing to do if I were the Lakers. And if you're the Clippers, you got a lot of young talent on that roster, too. You could definitely maneuver around. I still think they have some draft picks. I don't think they lost that much with Paul George. I know they lost this year for sure, but I know the every other year thing, I still think they have some if they want to deal some first-rounders away as well. So,
what about some of these other teams who are kind of close, like the Nuggets, the Rockets? Is there anything they can do to sneak their way into the discussion?
Yeah, the Nuggets are a deep team as it is, so I think, again, any depth could help with them.
But the Lakers could beat them because they have three big men. They have a tall lineup. So you saw what they did against Jokic earlier in the season.
That's fair. No, I'm not even talking head-to-head with just the Lakers. I'm just saying the way they have operated their roster, I think they're very deep. So I don't know if they necessarily are going to force their way into any big trade because I think the depth is what has helped them. You're right. They could use some size. But, again, it's kind of like what we were saying with Collison and DJ Augustine. I feel like that'll just be a small-scale trade. In terms of the Rockets, I don't know if there's anything they could really do right now. They traded a lot of first-rounders for Westbrook.
So they're just stuck with what they got?
They got some bad contracts. It's going to be very hard for them to make a splash right now, and they're just not a deep team to begin with.
Do you
so
think
I don't know how
the
far
Lakers
they
should
can
go after Derrick Rose?
That's interesting. Maybe. I could see
What has
that.
he been doing this year?
I could see
He's
that.
been pretty solid with Detroit. I'll look it up right now.
Well, yeah, because I just saw something about Blake Griffin's out, so they're thinking about moving on, looking to the future, so they're probably going to deal some of their guys, right?
Yeah, they're an older team anyway.
Blake Griffin's going to have season-ending surgery.
Yeah, so they're going to be looking to unload.
Yeah, they're an older team. They need all the picks they can get.
Derrick Rose, 17 points per game, 5.7 assists, 2.2 rebounds.
Wow.
So 7.5 assists on that team is
good. That's surprising.
48% field goal percentage.
That's surprising.
Okay. Yeah, that's 7.5 assists a game on that team is nice. I actually give him credit for that. That could be something that could work. Again, I don't know if that's the player you would need to even deal Kuzma for either. It's just a matter of who you're going to deal.
For point guards,
why are
though,
they
that
looking
would
to
be a
deal
great
Kuzma,
addition.
though?
Because he doesn't really fit with this new style of Lakers team.
Yeah,
with LeBron
especially
and
since
Anthony
they added
Davis.
Danny Green, because he doesn't.
Yeah.
He used to be in the starting lineup last year, Kyle Kuzma, until
Right.
Danny Green was brought into the picture.
So I think they're trying to maneuver him for those purposes. And
Kuzma's an excellent player, though.
no, he's a good player. I'm just saying he just doesn't fit with that
No,
team,
no,
so
no,
that's
no.
why he's trying to move.
Somebody like the Jazz or the Mavericks have a shot?
Dallas is kind of the same thing with the Rockets. They dealt so many draft picks away where that could be hard.
Yeah, for Porzingis.
For Porzingis, they dealt 2 first-round picks. They lost a first-round pick when they traded for Doncic originally. And how much do they have left is the question, because they need depth too. I think, again, a couple pieces could be obtainable for them. They are another team that could definitely use a big man. But at the same time, they also could use a point guard, too, to help out with – so Doncic doesn't have to ball handle every time. He could shoot at times. He can move around because he's a well-rounded player. He's not just a passer. He's not just a shooter. That'll give him a little more freedom and maybe even not have him wear himself out for the postseason either.
Not used to seeing this, but look at the bottom of the West is not as strong as we're used to seeing. I mean, the Thunder only a few games over 500, and the Spurs are 5 games under 500 in the 8 seed. So it's kind of a weird thing to see.
Thunder being where they are is shocking still. I thought they would fall off by now, but it hasn't happened yet.
Chris Paul's holding that team together. He's been a real leader for them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now he's another piece.
He's another guy.
He's another piece that's very interesting, and
he loves LeBron. He loves LeBron.
That would be interesting. Mm-hmm. That would be very interesting.
That would be good, I think.
What about the East, man? Do you think anybody other than Milwaukee could represent the East?
Boston, I think, is the only other one. Yeah. But
you don't think Philly at all?
No, I don't like their coach, and they're another team that lacks
up
depth.
And down.
Yeah,
Embiid is up and down every night.
And they're another team.
He could wreck a game, man.
Do they have the draft capital to make a trade too? Is the other question.
Ben Simmons needs to be able to have a shot too for them to win.
Yes, he decides to make a 3 against the Knicks. Thanks for noting.
Yeah.
Miami's had a surprising season too.
Yes.
I forgot about Miami. They could be good. They can make it second round. They could win a round, first round.
Well, yeah, as long as they hold their position
Jimmy
right now,
Butler's
they're going to.
Been very good. Their young players have been excellent.
Yeah, and then you have the defending champs who we don't expect.
That whole franchise just knows how to build their players.
The Heat,
Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, great owners.
You have the right front office in place. It really shows. What about the Raptors, though? I mean, they are the defending champs. Obviously, they don't have Kawhi. We know that. But some of the players, I mean, the rest of the team is still there, basically.
They're going to be able to go up against Kemba, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Giannis. I don't know. I don't see it.
Well, their coach has definitely proven a lot this year because obviously he inherited Kawhi Leonard last year.
Kyle Lowry's going to have to be very good.
Right. So he inherited Kawhi Leonard last year, so it wasn't really like it was all him. He did well, but it wasn't really all him. He did better with the depth players. Now he's doing well with those depth players finally. The Raptors were a team that lacked depth for years, depth and really defense, and now he's brought that identity there. So it definitely could work. In terms of what they could trade for, they probably could use some shooting. I think that's a big key for them when looking at them because they're a defensive structure team right now. They got Van Vliet, who's all right, but he's really more of a bench player, so maybe a starting type shooter, wing player, I think is something they could definitely go for. I don't know about overall star because I don't know if they have the pieces for that, though.
Well, the conference finals should be interesting in both the East and the West. I think we should be looking at, hopefully, Milwaukee versus Boston, and then I think the Lakers and the Clippers, even though right now the Clippers are like in the 4th spot in the West, but the conference finals should be really good.
I would put Houston over the Clippers.
Really?
For right now, yeah, but the Clippers have gone
through
their low
they're waiting.
management. Right, the Clippers went through their low management phase. That's why they were losing games in the beginning of the season. And now the Rockets probably will have to do that at some point. The Lakers will do it definitely at some point. I can't see LeBron completely.
I am interested to see.
He's not going to play the whole year.
This Rockets team is going to be interesting, though, with Westbrook.
The Rockets could outshoot the Clippers.
You think?
No, the defense really the defense will jump up a notch once the playoffs start, though.
They have two good shooters, really.
Eric Gordon.
And Harden.
PJ Tucker's
he's
knocked
a
down from
guy.
sharpshooter.
He's a defensive guy. He's not really a shooter.
But, yeah, I mean, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I'd like to see Giannis in the finals. I think he's earned it. And I would like to see the Lakers in the finals. I would like to see a Giannis, LeBron passing of the torch kind of meeting.
He needs a jump shot.
Who's that?
Giannis desperately.
Oh, he's improved big time.
Yeah,
his
he's
shooting
grown
has
a
improved
little this
big
year.
time.
It's not sudden, but it's definitely growing in comparison to where it was last year.
I remember watching them play the Lakers and watching him hitting some pretty deep threes. Like Giannis is ready. He's ready to take that next step.
I don't think they would beat them in the 7-game series.
Probably not. Especially, I mean, we got to see what happens if any of them improve at the trade deadline.
The competition between the East and the West is very different.
It is, but Milwaukee does have two things over the Lakers, and that's depth and coaching. I think Budenholzer's a better coach. And
very good coach.
And I think they definitely have the depth. They have different kinds of players,
Who is the Bucks point guard? Bledsoe?
Bledsoe, yeah.
He's been very disappointing.
Yeah, he's a little down this year, but he's still a good player. I don't think he's a bad player.
Yeah. And it stinks that we have to wait a year to we have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant sitting out, so that would be an interesting dynamic to throw into this. But, the Nets seem to have – and what's going on with Kyrie and his shoulder?
He can't even move his arm. They said he can't even lift his arm.
What a shame, man. That guy – ever since he hit the game-winning shot in when Cleveland won in Game 7 against the Warriors, he seems to have dropped off a lot. I mean, he's a very talented player, but
for leaving LeBron because he thought he was the next Kobe, controlling a team. He wanted to be the man.
Yeah, and that didn't.
Saw what happened in Boston.
Did not work out. Yeah, and I don't know. I thought he'd be able to show something this year with Brooklyn, but I don't know. His shoulder, I guess, is really hindering him.
He's a shooter, so that of course it's going to hinder.
Yeah, no, I know, but I just
kind of player.
You didn't hear any timetable. It was just he was day to day for a while, and then all of a sudden,
for a while now.
Yeah.
All the other news with Kyrie Irving swirling around him probably gets rid of all the injury news.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk about him anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you could say about him, all his beliefs and everything. Anything new happen in baseball? I saw. Did you see this story about? There was more stuff that came out about the cheating with the Red Sox.
2018 World Series.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I'm interested to see what punishments they end up doling out.
Well, depending on what magnitude they do it, I didn't see anything about this until he just texted me. Tyler coming up next on the home stretch. We'll be getting into this. I didn't know about this, but if it's at the same level, the same magnitude, they're going to have to suspend them equally, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Now, the Astros did it for 2 rounds, so maybe not quite, but at the same time, it still is cheating. You can't use cameras to steal signs.
And the Red Sox didn't. Theirs wasn't quite as obvious as what the Astros were doing, from what I was seeing.
Well, it wasn't obvious if you find out 2 years later.
No, I'm saying that the way that the Astros.
Oh, the Astros, they did it they didn't care.
Yeah, it was as in your face as it gets. Yeah. What else we got
Lakers,
here?
Oh, here it is.
Dwight Howard entered the dunk contest.
Here's one. They used the replay room. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So it is actually different. I don't know, because that's multiple cameras. That's also TriCaster technology that could be involved in that. That actually...
But then they would only do it when a guy got to second base?
Yeah, someone from the Red Sox dugout would communicate with a base runner who'd relay the pitch. So it's similar kind of notion. They're bringing in the signals, and they're actually using it even further with, again, I think a third guy involved in each of that kind of thing. I'd have to see what the replay room looks like to actually confirm if it was just one camera, if it was multiple. Because the way it looks, it actually might be a bit worse, but it's still similar, where I think the suspension still will be similar from what it looks like.
Yeah. All right, anything else you want to talk about?
Dwight Howard dunk contest. He just entered himself.
Wow.
He entered himself?
Yeah, you know.
He entered himself.
I wish why didn't LeBron ever do one? Why did he deny us of that?
Because he does it in games.
True.
True.
Like, I want to see all of the stars that you have play in all of these, like, skills contests. Like, imagine a dunk contest with all in their primes, like LeBron, Kobe,
Vince Carter.
You know, Vince Carter was so good. But it's just a shame that, like, none of these guys want to do it.
They're worried. Same thing with baseball. They're always worried with the messing up of their swings for the home run derby. Now they've become pickier.
Yeah.
As Tyler gives a thumbs up because he's still in favor of that theory, which has only worked for certain players.
All right, well, anything else you want to cover before we wrap it up here?
I think we got to everything.
Basically.
Did we get to every game? Because I know I was gone for a little while. Did we get to
while
every
you
game?
were on the,
okay.
we eventually finished up, and
right.
so we got some good. Hopefully, it's going to be as exciting as last weekend was, because
I think it can be. There's a lot of good matchups.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't think we can quite get the finishes that we had last week, but you know, we'll hopefully we get something close to that, because
I think the
that was
quality
amazing.
of play will still be strong, though, and
Right.
especially like I said with the Niners-Vikings game and the Ravens-Titans. I think you could see quality of play strong in both those games.
Yeah. All right, so that about wraps it up here. No Errol for this show, but Errol should be back tomorrow for Down to the Wire. Again, the number is 631-300-4477. We got coming up next. What's the show?
This is the home stretch.
The home stretch with Tyler coming up next. So stay tuned, everybody, and don't be afraid to call in. So Down to the Wire, signing off for today.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.